It's 5 o'clock, I call this work session to order. I'm gonna start with the restart.
Oh.
Because I think that's something that we all can agree on, and it's gonna take the least amount of time to work with, and I think the other stuff's gonna take a little more time, and I'd like to see this happen, so.
Okay, excellent. I pulled it up. So everybody had a chance to look at the application, right? And it is it's free. It is free. I know that when I was talking about before, there was a cost, there was concerns about cost for the assistance that we might need or have. This is it's Michigan Department of Environment, Regs, and Energy, and then one of 12 private, very influential universities, and they get expert help, some that are expired. It is a very easy application. It is one page, and I promised Scott I would even fill it out for him. But I have to ask some questions. So basically you need your number of facilities, you need your square footage, you need to say why you are applying for this assistance, and then you have the ability to upload supporting documents, you submit, and you are done. So that sounds pretty easy. Any questions?
Is there anyone who doesn't like this?
It's free?
It's free.
It's free.
No cost.
Wow.
Why would we say no to free?
Not even buy one, get one.
I don't think this has that, Steve, sorry.
What's that?
There's no buy one, get one with this, so sorry. I mean, I could ask, but if I fill out the application.
No, free is free, that's better yet.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm willing to help as needed.
I support it.
Great.
I don't have anything against it.
I can't see any reason to be against it either. Sounds
I think we have
reasonable.
a consensus that gives staff a direction. Okay, let's.
If you want me to do it, let me know.
Count on it. So when we approve this, it would be on the agenda, and then there would be more discussion as to exactly what kind of things would be available to businesses and stuff.
This is to us.
Well, this is only for
This is to
the
us.
city. Okay.
This is for they offer it to businesses and municipalities, we qualify. Steve, if it's approved, then I think there would be more of a discussion about what we might be looking for.
Okay.
Correct. We would have to be approved, it's an application, we would have to be approved, and at that point, I don't think we would have to come back to council with anything more formal than your nods tonight, other than if there's any type of contractual agreement post-acceptance, or to massage, exactly what we're gonna be looking for. So.
Okay, thanks.
All right, with that, let's move on to appointments. Mr. Brown.
Where are we at? Well, I don't know, look, kinda looks like, what Scott gave us or staff gave us is, kinda has a lot of choose this or choose that's in it. I think you guys have decided from what discussions that we've had, that's kinda where we're at now. It's either like, do this one or do this one or do that one.
Yeah, and not that, I think, the conversations Brenda and I have, I think we've kind of boiled down the items that still need clarification and which direction to head in.
Okay,
So yeah, a lot of blanks to fill in if that's the direction we're heading.
yeah, I mean, I was kinda thinking that, from what I got out of it, we were just gonna kinda go down it and fill in the blanks or choose the yeses or, where they need to be or no's or whatever and go from there. If we agree on everything, but,
My stance on this is, I don't support any of it. My feeling is, the process that we've used for the past 20 years has been a smooth operating process. It's not broke, I don't feel a need to fix it. My position is leave things as they are.
Well, I have a opinion on the term's expiring time because to me, a term expires on December 31 and there's already new people in place on this board. And then, and they don't really even know what they're voting on if there's new people coming on and they gotta vote by the 31st of December. They've only been on the council for a month maybe. So I think that the terms should expire somewhere like the end of March or first couple weeks of April or somewhere in there. And it gives people a little bit of time to get familiarized with, you know,
What they're doing.
and who the people are, you know, for the people on the council to don't know a lot of the people that are gonna be appointed, so, I don't know, that's my opinion on that part of it, and then, I think it should be, I think 3 terms is plenty on any of them. That's just a couple of things so far, I've really looked at all the other fill in the blanks things, but those first 2 I'd just throw out there, that's my opinion on them, so.
Scott, how hard would it, since all the committees and all this stuff, it's like end of the calendar year right now. What kind of chaos is it gonna create if we decide to go to a different end of term?
Simple answer, unless I get a dirty look from Brenda, put all this together, is it wouldn't. The December 31 kind of came about because we did have a lot of boards expiring at different times. So for ease of staff and, you know, for council, it was best to put them all same expiration time. So if it were changed, it really wouldn't be chaotic. Whatever time council chooses, then I'd assume we would still want all of them to expire at the same time, just for ease of remembering for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what he's saying, and I made the same point before about if you know, if you just get elected and you're coming on in November and December, they're asking you to vote on something like this and you're not really even sure what you're doing yet, most likely you're just gonna vote yes because you don't know what you're doing and you don't wanna rock the boat. Except somebody like me. So, that would be my first comment on that part of it. I don't know if anybody else, if we just wanna go down these as they're on this thing, so we can figure it out, if everybody wants to make a comment one way or another, and
That would probably be easiest for Brenda and I versus bouncing around.
everybody jumping all over the place.
I don't know if that's necessarily bad, except for there might be some impact from some of the boards where you have elected official on that is no longer on. So, and I favor, I'm jumping down, but I favor if the authority or the board wants elected officials, and I think that's important for us to stick with that. I'd rather keep council members on those if those boards want council members, and I think that there's important reasons for that. So what if you have somebody who's lost an election, term limited, and then, like, for example, I was on the solid waste authority, and there's a meeting in the first quarter, or if there's a meeting monthly, I mean, what would you do about that?
I think most of our boards say that they will serve until replaced. Now, I don't know if there gets into a technical thing where a council member is appointed by virtue of the office, and they continue serving if they're no longer on council.
That probably wouldn't be a big deal.
We have that case with the fire authority.
Really? Oh,
And your,
And
Norm.
Norm, we're both, yeah,
Norm is,
because I expired my first time around, and I was allowed to continue, and I just continued until this one.
okay, that's fine then. I would agree with a little bit later, although ideally I would hope that anybody running for council has been attending meetings and finding out about the boards from the website and going to those meetings maybe. So sometimes it doesn't always happen that way, but ideally city council members have some idea of what they're getting into when they run, and then they, by the time they sit on at this important elevated platform. So I I could see both ways, but, you know, I could go either way on that. If we do it later, I would like what I suggested before, which is a presentation on all the boards. What are they? I don't think that hurts to kick it off every year, and I think I heard Scott saying he would do that. He's nodding his head.
Yes.
Yeah. So
That
I
is correct.
don't know, I could see it both ways, so I think I'm gonna be a little bit neutral on it.
I think it would be helpful to push it out a little bit later than December. I don't know if it would make sense to potentially push it all the way to the end of June. And then make the appointment sometime, say in March, and then there would be some, not overlap, because those appointments their seats wouldn't take effect until the July meetings. But there would be a period of time that maybe they could sit in on the meetings, maybe learn a little bit, maybe some of the training. I think there's a piece later that requires specific training if it's available. They would have opportunity to take that training before they're actually sitting on the board officially doing the voting. I don't know if that's too long of a timeline, but I can see pushing the decision to do the appointments out a little bit longer. I can get on board with that.
Okay.
I would like to see more, I'd like to see it delayed a little bit from December. For the same reason, I guess.
I would just think that if we, say we pick March, the end of March as the timeline for it, as far as anybody that was already on a council person that was on one, because it says that a council person has to be on one, I wouldn't think that, we would just let it ride by the old rule that, you're there until you're either told you're not there anymore, or, or you're reappointed, one of the two. I wouldn't think that 3 months would make unless there's a legal deal.
And I think, Will, did you want to chime in?
I
We had a
think,
sidebar already,
yeah,
so
we
we'll
were
share.
I don't think it's a problem if it's an internal decision that it should be a council member. I don't know if there's any that are statutory.
What I was gonna ask. I think I
Were
should
those-
know
aren't there
by now,
some
but
that are-
I feel like there are, and I think that's why.
Because those would be different. I don't know what the statute would say on that. So we'd have to probably look at something like that.
The election commission is by charter, and it identifies the mayor. And I'm not sure, planning commission is the mayor and one elected. And I think that's by state law. And I think that's probably the only two.
They don't have any dates that their actually terms expire on.
No,
Okay.
no.
So I think on the planning one, we probably need to take a look at that.
And because right now it says the mayor, city manager, and one council member, so if a person who was mayor on November 1st is no longer mayor on November 30th, that might
Right.
create an issue, although the lack of one member, you've got 9 people on planning commission, you might have to wing it with 2 less members for 3 months.
Well, here it says the mayor and the manager designee terms coincide with the mayor's term. Is that just our policy or is that the statute?
That's statute.
So that's
So the
probably why
mayor's
they're
on
in
the
November.
mayor's on it when they're the mayor, sort of irregardless of whatever the
Right.
terms are in here.
So it's hard to make a hard and fast rule for all these boards. There are going to be differences.
Well, the closer we can get, the less confusion, because it took us a while to get, because a lot of these say, like planning commission, 3 members on 3-year overlapping terms as best as possible, so you don't have 9 new members in 1 year. And somehow we got out of whack on that, so it took us a while to get everybody back in line. They're not going to be identical, but the less differences, then the more efficient we're going to be. So yeah, with this one, at the expiration of a mayoral term on planning commission, the mayor and the city manager, his designee, are no longer on planning. Although the new mayor would automatically take
Right, so
his
the
or
new
her
mayor would
place.
just flop in.
So, yeah,
So-
the
so
mayor,
the-
the mayor one is gonna be there one way or the other.
Right.
It might be a different person, but
Right.
And the
that's-
council member one is a little bit different because it would have to be a council appointment. So if a council member's on planning and their term expires, or they don't get reelected, then we'll have a vacancy until council appoints a specific council member to be on planning. So again, the mayor's automatic.
Right.
So the mayor would be on planning the day he or she takes office. Correct.
Yes, right.
So worst case scenario, you've got a couple of months without a council member on planning.
And maybe it makes sense just to wait through the month of January, maybe waiting to March is just too long. Just sounds like it's becoming kind of complicated.
Well, I think the further you drag it out,
Yeah.
so blank number one is,
Is?
I see we're trying to recreate a wheel here and we're gonna cause more problems than not with a lot of this stuff. To a point that it's worked for how long. There's a huge learning curve in a lot of these, appointments, and if we start flip-flopping people real short duration, we lose the, I won't say seniority, but we lose that, what they have learned up to that point, and that's one of my concerns, is that we're moving these people too quick, and granted, we want people on there, but then again, we want people that are educated on there, and that's one of the things that concerns me, especially with one of the ones I'm on, the fire authority. If you don't, and Tanya will tell you, if you don't have some kind of a clue what's going on, you get left behind in a big hurry. So it's one of those things where you've been learning. It's nice to keep those people there for a while, because if you get somebody new and they're voting, and it could really impact a public safety and make it a public safety issue, so.
Well, the other thing is, like the solid waste authority and the fire authority, these are long-standing relationships we have with other governmental units in the area. And so, that's why I think it's important to keep a council member on there, because, we spend money, we provide money to these entities, and so I think that's important. But also, they're long-standing relationships, and I think having some longevity makes a difference. I'll go back to planning. I was on planning for 10 years. And, that's not related to our relationships, but you do learn a lot in that 10 years. So I would not be in favor of just popping somebody off because they're terminally, It helps. The more that you're on a body and you make a commitment to show up, the more you learn about, the different issues in our community. So,
And you need that information to make wise choices and decisions.
well, we are the face we're the first face of government to people in our community, and so we owe it to them to have kind of a responsible process for this. I would, I'd go along with a compromise to at least wait till January, so the new council members had at least, so they weren't hit with it the first meeting. I would compromise to that level.
January 31 or something. Last meeting in January,
Yeah.
the second meeting in January. That makes sense. That's
works
a
for
little
me.
bit better
It works,
anyway. Yeah.
at least it pushes it out a little bit further, for somebody to
Before meeting,
understand what they're doing a little bit
Yeah.
better.
I think that's a minor disruption.
Right.
So how about terms expire on January 31, and the next blank is that the council appointments will be made on the second meeting in January.
Sounds good. You can ink that one in.
Hold on,
It's in ready too.
Oh,
now I guess it's I don't like having to vote on the at the meeting immediately prior to the end of the terms, I guess.
In the case that the council doesn't approve appointments,
Right.
makes sense.
Well, ideally, we're gonna have a little more heads up, so we'll have a chance to look at the appointments, possibly. And we're all gonna be on for a while too, so it's gonna get easier. Well, hopefully.
But perhaps what we can say is that appointments and confirmations by the city council will be considered at the second meeting in January. That gives you a little, it's not saying you have to make them by then. The deadline of January 31, you've got the fallback that they continue to serve until replaced.
That's one of the issues I'd like to look at,
Which one?
serving until they're replaced. There's a couple of issues, I guess, that I think interact here. I don't like the idea that somebody could, that currently I think that's been used to just keep the same people in office in their board and committee. I could get around that depending, I guess, on how what I would like, I don't want to get off into a different topic, but I would like to have everybody fills out an application, whether it's in paper or online. Everybody that wants to apply fills out an application, even the people that are currently in that position. And that just because you're in that position, you're not guaranteed that you're going to have another term. And the reason why I think it's important that everybody fills out an application is so that we have the chance to vote on we could reject somebody whose term is up. We could reject the mayor's nomination, as long as there are other applications to look at.
Well, and that's one item for consideration at the top of page 2 is the application form.
And for me, that ties in a lot of issues. Those are the more important things to me, actually.
But I think you want some safeguards, and I'll refer to Will, that if the terms expire on the 31st and council, because of disagreement, has not been able to come to a consensus on appointments, you have nobody serving. And basically the wheels of government come to a screeching halt. That only happens in DC, hopefully not in Whitehall.
Then if there are no other applications available to vote on, then I would see them continuing in their term.
Or if nobody gets approved. I mean, you can have 4 applicants and none of them get approved.
And the mayor, in the charter, the mayor makes the appointments with the approval of council, so does he have like the first run at it?
Not all of them.
He or she does.
Here,
Right.
sorry.
But we should have the ability to turn that down
Oh, sure.
and vote on the next person in line. And if everybody fills out applications and stuff, then we have an ability to look at other applications.
And that's part of this whole policy, is to take those applications in. I think we're targeting October, which is subject to some blanks being filled in, so that there's kind of a deadline. That doesn't mean it's hard and fast, but at least at that deadline, a stack of applications will go to the mayor and the council members in October. So now you've got 3 months to review them and come to a consensus as to who's going to be appointed where.
I do have to admit, I'm uncomfortable with addressing individual applications and why we support them or not in that manner. I mean, it's gonna probably inhibit people from wanting to apply if they know that they're gonna be the subject of a discussion. I mean, is that what you're looking for, Tom, though, as we say we don't like this person because of this, or, I mean, you're gonna have to give reasons why you don't support people one way or another. I think that could be kind of
That's probably true.
I find that to be a divisive way of doing business like that. and I'm not looking to be divisive.
Well, I don't wanna be divisive either, but, you know, it does say here that, diversity in numbers is, desired by, anyway, diversity in numbers is desired, but we will be dictated by the availability of qualified candidates. Well, who's gonna who's gonna decide who's qualified? If we don't have the option to discuss it, then we're just going on the mayor's recommendation.
Which we have, you know, which we typically do. I mean, the
But
mayor has voted and he has that's part of his role, I guess, or her role.
Right, but if we vote it down, I mean, I think we should be having a serious vote on who's elected and not just go with whoever's there. I don't think is the right way to do it. I think the rest of us have the ability to make decisions on who's qualified and not. And that's it.
I don't know, I would, myself, I guess I would push that issue off for a little while. I don't know, I mean, I don't really feel like we have suffered greatly from the people who are in their positions, you know what I mean? I don't think I've had complaints about people in the various boards and things, and I just think it's it's not as if it's a high-paying job, and there's a lot of competition for applications, so I would just be careful with that, I guess, Tom. I would, as a new member, my suggestion would be just to wait and see how it plays out, and maybe we could address it again, but
To me, that's an important issue.
I see, there's different, you know, the way we do it now is we get a list from the mayor and it's up or down, everybody. Well, actually, the Board of Review says 3 members appointed by the city council. This is in the city charter. The Brownfield redevelopment says appointed by the mayor. So the mayor doesn't automatically appoint everybody to everything, and the council is supposed to be appointing people on a few of these boards. So there's some discrepancies there on how they're written. Different ones are different. So
You know, if we come to a situation where there's just one application, then I guess it's a done deal. But if there's 3 or 4 applications sitting there, I don't think we should just automatically remove who's in the chair.
well, I guess, are you comfortable having that discussion that, because we need to be providing reasons for why we feel somebody's qualified or not qualified, and you're comfortable having that discussion right here?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
I guess I'm saying
Let's
I'm
go.
not comfortable with it.
we're voted in to make choices and to.
But the problem we're gonna run into is the people and the quality of the individuals coming in might not be there, like Tanya said, if they know that potentially you got a problem with one person from past history or something like that, and you're gonna air their dirty laundry in a public meeting. I mean, it's.
Maybe they shouldn't be involved in
Well,
politics.
they should be
but
involved in
it-
politics.
But it
That's
could
right.
be, but it could be a personal thing, that you've got an issue with this person that you had in the past.
Yeah, but are all 7 people gonna have an issue with them?
Well,
They'll get-
So you're gonna, but you're gonna bring it up to everybody.
But it would be engaging in personalities, and I find
I
that
think
distasteful.
we're opening a can of
I
worms.
don't think that's gonna happen, to be honest with you.
How can you do it without providing reasons? How can
You
you
feel
say,
that out, you put that in your application.
okay, so we're here and you say, I don't want this person because, and somebody
So-
else, yeah.
So the person appointing them should make an argument for and give their reasons for each person they're appointing. So if the mayor appoints all these people, then he should say, I want this guy because blah, blah, blah. And then there's several of them, and, what's another one?
I don't think it's.
I just saw another one that's appointed by the council, I just saw it, I can't remember which one it was now. It was something to do with the county.
There's one of the boards that has somebody from the
Region-
school district,
Regional
somebody from the
shoreline,
county.
regional development.
The dispatch.
Oh, that's appointed by the mayor.
The dispatch.
Community library appointed by council. It doesn't say appointed by the mayor, it says appointed by council.
Are you reading Scott's
What?
summary or are you reading the city charter?
I'm reading what it says on these.
Those are yours, right, Scott?
Yeah, which,
Anything that's here that's not in bold is already there. That's on this sheet we got. So the way like fire authority board appointed by the council. Solid waste authority appointed by the council. There's only a few that say appointed by the mayor. Zoning board of appeals appointed by the council upon recommendation of the mayor. And there's several different ones like that. Wastewater management.
there is a variety as to how the appointments are made. And our past practice has been, at least for the 20-plus years I've been here, and probably, I think, as the mayor said, 20 before that, is that staff will sit down with a newly elected mayor and say, here are the appointments, here are the ones that are expiring. Are there anybody, is there anybody that you would rather not have reappointed? So it is a discussion with just the mayor, and I think that's probably an issue with some of the council members.
Yeah.
And then if the mayor says, I want these 5 people reappointed, then staff will contact those people and see if they're interested. And then if we have vacancies, then we sit around and try and figure out who might be interested, willing, and beneficial. And then we'll bounce that back off the mayor. So there's a process here at City Hall. And again, I think that's not well received by some of the council members, and I understand that. But that's always been the process, even though it says appointed by the council or appointed by, other than the charter ones that say it will be the mayor or it will be the city manager. That's a process we've always used. And I think to Councilmember Scavala's point, we've never had a board be dysfunctional because of that process. But ultimately, all of the appointments, even the ones that say it shall be made by the mayor, come back to the council. So ultimately, you do make the appointments. There's just, I think, which is let us here, is there's not more involvement by the council when we get to that point.
I think the problem started when we went to this elected mayor position. It used to be the mayor was appointed by the council, basically. And so it wasn't like he was the top authority on everything, which it seems to be that some people have an issue with a little bit as far as appointments and stuff. So it's more of a political position now.
Last year, the system worked. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, there were 22 renewal positions. Every one of those 22 was recommended by the mayor for continuing. And we were without having an alternative to vote for, and also going by that term, by that thing that anyway, 22 out of 22 people were renewed in their term. And we had no choice at that point to eliminate any of those if we had reason or to get anybody else new in. Because there was not a system in place where interested people, well, technically there was, but there was not really a system in place for people to submit applications. We had one choice, and that was to renew that person, or they continued in their job anyway. And I don't think that that's
The
fair.
whole slate was, you
20
wanted the whole slate in or the whole slate down.
Well,
There wasn't no-
I guess I would,
nothing in between.
And there were 3 positions that had been vacated, and those were kind of the same thing, but they were positions that were recommended by the process I assume that you were talking about, where the mayor and you get together and they make recommendations. Right. I just think you need to give people, including people on the council, the opportunity to get on the board. And if everybody has applications filled out and there is a choice to be made, the system gets along, the committees work because they haven't changed for 10 years. That doesn't mean you're getting the best ideas, it doesn't mean that you're getting the best qualified people either.
And I would argue that there has definitely been a formalized application process for quite a few years.
So I say technically, but
But
how many people?
there's been discussions about making that, I wouldn't say transparent, because I hate that word, because it implies something is not transparent, but we could probably do a better job of soliciting. And I think that's been part of the discussion, is council members can throw names at Brenda, the mayor, myself at any time. And I know you've mentioned vote the whole slate up with the whole slate down. I do know last fall, there was one that was brought up by a council member, and he expressed his reasons for not making that appointment. Now, had a majority of council decided that's a good reason, then that person would have been excluded, and we would have been back to filling that position. So I think there is
It would have been back to him staying in the chair anyway. Because if nobody else has been elected, his term automatically continues.
until filled. He will continue to serve until filled.
Which under the old system
But
would have been a vote this year in November.
No,
No,
it's
you
not
need
an
to-
automatic renewal. You could have gotten rid of them the very next, I'm sorry to say that, that's a little harsh. That person could have been removed and replaced the very next council meeting. It's not an automatic default reappointment for the same term. So if somebody's term expires and council decides that we don't want him or her in that position, but we don't have a replacement readily available, that person, you could decide, no, they're done now. Or you can say, we'd like to replace that person, but we don't have a candidate yet, so that person's gonna serve until we find a good replacement. It's not an automatic 3-year renewal or a 4-year or a 5-year.
What happens in the case of somebody gets, so they can't do the jobs, say physically or whatever, they can't, they get ill, become ill or something, and they miss,
We've replaced people partway through, Steve.
yeah,
We have.
Yep.
A lot.
Yeah.
There's been Dave Badow, who's been the long-term chair of the planning commission. He stepped down due to health reasons. And then we just, obviously that's a chair position, so we elect a new chair. And then we look to fill that vacant seat.
okay.
Well, I don't think it hurts to push it off to January. I think that would give new council members a chance to get up to speed. I also think, I was on city council for 10 years when Matt Hatch was mayor. For what it's worth, people at the mayor have that prerogative. I may not have always agreed, in particular with this person or that person. On the other hand, I've paid attention, and I don't see any reason to criticize people who've been on the boards. I think they do a fine job. They're volunteers. I haven't had a lot of complaints about people about this board or that board. I think it would be helpful, and not right now, Tom, of course, but if there are complaints about specific boards and why, to know more, because it seems like there's more to your comment. But I'm happy to do things the way they are. I think people, I appreciate them serving, and I'd like to continue the way that we're doing it. And I'll tell you one way that you can get appointed to a board is to attend meetings. And I tell people that I tell them, if you want to, because we actually have somebody on this council right now, and I'm not gonna name, who ran for election, didn't make it, started attending meetings. And when then the mayor appointed that person to planning, and then we also appointed that person to an open council seat. So, there are ways that you can make your interests known about wanting to be on a board, and certainly showing up and showing that you care about your city and you have been paying attention to the different boards really helps. So, but I do think January 31st is a good compromise in my view, giving us a little more time.
And being interviewed for a position, you don't have to be interviewed by the whole council either. You could have a free council group, like, when I first got appointed to the planning commission, that was Wally Leasing was the mayor. And I was on there, and then I became the planning commission chairman. And then John Ingalls passed away halfway through his term. And I me and Ed Will and somebody else, like 3 or 4 of us, interviewed with a group of councilmen, and it wasn't the whole council, I don't believe, I think it was like 3 of them, the mayor and a couple others. And then they picked me to fill in the rest of John Engel's term, which was 2 years. So then I just got elected after that, so people gotta understand that, you know, you're gonna be looked at if you wanna be in any of these positions. You have to look at people to see that they're qualified, or to talk to them, you know, whatever.
Actually, that's an exception to the Open Meetings Act. You could, if it's for employment purpose, you can have a closed meeting where people don't have to expose themselves to the public if they don't want.
No, you
Isn't
can't.
that correct?
That is incorrect.
Not for that. For employment positions you can, but not,
There's
not
a
for,
distinction
not,
between being on a board and being employed.
right.
So the way I'm looking at it, there's 16 total boards. There's 10 of them that I've counted that have the council appointments. 6 of them, only 6 of them on that list are full mayoral appointments, if I'm reading correct.
I'll trust your math.
Well, that's, yeah, I was a Whitehall graduate, so.
Well, then I'll go back and
Then go
count.
back on it. That's what I'm looking at with this. I mean, and like I said, I've been on a while. I was on, like what Tanya said, a while. Everything was working fine. If we have somebody that falls behind, falls to the wayside, doesn't perform to where we perform, we as a council can remove that person. The committees can also, I do believe, have, some of those committees have the ability to do the same thing, won't they? Some of them do?
There's a few of them.
Yeah, that have the ability to, if they have somebody that's underperforming or not, that they can remove them or at least request from us to look at them. I mean, there's nothing to say that when you put this person in, it's a permanent thing for that amount of time either, so. Like I said, and we're talking about six spots. 10 of those spots, essentially, we have say over. And we have that potential to look at these people with the other 6 spots. I mean, we're recreating a whole document and a policy for 6 spots.
I don't,
We do, but we don't. I mean, this whole thing came about because I complained about the way the system worked. And some of you think that it's worked fine for 20 years, and the reason this came about was because I don't think it does work right. You know, so, you know, you're saying that 8 or 10 of these boards, the council gets to approve, or the council gets to say who's gonna be on the board. I've never been asked, other than in the vote up here,
Well, then,
who I wanted to be on a board. I didn't get to look at everybody's names.
then that's the portion we need to change.
And I think that's where we
That's the
started
process we need to
with
change.
looking at, when we call it an application, and I don't wanna get caught up in the language of it. But it's not really an application, it's more of an information sheet to get our understanding of who might be interested, because as it
It's
is,
an interest form.
it's
You're
an
interested.
interest
I
one,
mean,
whatever
you're
the right
interested
term
in-
is,
exactly.
yeah, so that we have a pool of people to say, hey, you know, when you guys sit down to look at who you might recommend for appointment, then you have some options to choose from. It's not an employment application. So, I mean, there's a distinction that I think we have to be careful about, because we're not going to every single time, let's say there are 5 people interested in being on planning. Most of them are not gonna be qualified, because the very few people actually go to school to be a planner. I mean, and what's the likelihood that they're gonna be signing up to be on our planning commission? So some of our boards, a lot of our boards have people on them that aren't technically qualified to be there until they've been on there for a while. And I think that's just part of the learning piece that we have
Just
to
like
deal
council.
with.
I mean, same
Like
thing
this
with
is
like
like
this
council.
board.
So,
Yeah.
I think we have to be careful with the application or information sheet, because it's not an employment application. It is, hey, I think this is interesting, I would like to serve on this board,
and this is why.
and here's why. Yeah, and you might have an education background or employment background that could help do that, but the specifics of each board are varied. So I think we have to be careful with that piece of it. I would not want to have, I agree, I would not want to have a discussion over this person, that person qualified or not because of 1 or 2 things on their interest sheet. So we have to be careful with that. I think, for me, that goes back to the education piece of what are the boards about? So I like the, information sheet that was in the, water bill, because I think a lot of people, it really, I got a lot of comments from people who really appreciated seeing that, because some people didn't have any idea that there were that many, or that many options to express interest. So for me, it goes back to information sheets to let people know we're interested on being on a board, but we also have to provide some education of what does that mean. And then if somebody does get appointed to a board, help them understand quickly what things are required. Open Meetings Act. I mean, the general training that we all go through when we get on council, and everybody needs to understand that to be on the board. So I'm not opposed to pushing back the appointment date and expiration date of the meetings, but I don't think we have to do an interview process to do the appointments.
I'd just like to say that, I don't have anything against anybody on any of the boards. I'm not looking to replace anybody. I would just like other people to have a fair chance to get a position on the board too. There are people in the community who have outstanding qualifications for different things, and I'd like for them to have a chance to get on the board.
It's changed over the years, 20-some years ago. When you ran for the council, you might not have anybody run against you. And then, and you couldn't get anybody. Nobody knew what all these boards were, and if somebody came in and said, "Hey, I'd like to be on a board," they'd pretty much say, "Well, we got an opening on this," and say, "Okay, we'll put you up at the next meeting or whatever." And and now I think there's more people interested in being involved in local government, which is good. And so we should encourage that, and advertise like you said, and our water bills and things like that, to let people know what kind of things are available. Because if the LDFA makes a decision and you hear people complaining about it, or the Tiffin district or whatever, and it's like, well, maybe you should ask to get on that board or whatever, get involved or something. Attend some meetings. Yeah, exactly. So you hear a lot of complaints, but nobody wants to. We'll see.
All right, we're getting close to, we have to open this up for public comment. I just want to add that my policy has been every year in December to go to Scott and say, what boards, what people, terms are expiring, what people, are these people all doing a good job, should we keep them? And so my appointments have come on the recommendation of staff. They haven't been my personal appointments. A lot of those people, I don't know. I don't go to all those boards. The boards I go to, I believe those people are doing a good job. So I rely on staff to tell me, these are good people and we should keep them in that position. So I'm taking staff's recommendation and presenting it to the council and saying, this is what staff thinks should be, the people that should be in these committees. Now, you say you wanna give people a chance, you got someone who's doing a good job, you wanna say, oh, I want him off because I want my guy on there.
That's how our system works. If you're a House of Representatives or a senator or something like that.
This is Whitehall.
This is Whitehall.
We've got good people serving in positions that are doing a good job. I wanna keep them there. At this, anybody wants to do a public comment, please step up to the microphone and give your name and address. Limit to 3 minutes, please.
Can I just make a question about the public comment? Will there be time for the other items that are still on here for this time?
Not
Or should I make my public comment now about those items?
Yes.
Mine is just want to let everybody know that Shuffleboard in Montague Township Park is starting May 1st. It's like 17 weeks or something like that. For the summer, for the seniors to come and enjoy themselves, get them out of the house. So if you have anybody in your family that wants to come over, you start at 1:30 on May 1st.
30
Okay.
and first shuffleboard. Thank you.
First time,
Is
yeah?
that Lillian? Is that mic on?
I don't know.
No,
Can
it's
you hear
not.
me?
I didn't think so.
Oh, I don't talk very loud either.
We got your
All right,
information.
May
Thank you.
1st, 1:30. Thank you.
Alright, How do I turn the microphone?
There should be a button right on the side there.
It's a button right
Somewhere.
on the top. Green light should come on. Yeah, and very.
Unless the batteries are dead.
No batteries.
Oh, they were sitting right there.
Speak on.
I'll use my loud teacher
Yeah, that's
voice.
right. Yeah, talk loud.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Chris Billy from Whitehall. I wanted to let you know that I am strongly against the 2022 ordinance which allowed the use of Lake Street for snowmobilers. I live in Tannery Bay with approximately 100 other homes. This number will soon be 120 homes when the complex is completed. Lake Street is our only access in and out of where we live. Allowing snowmobilers on Lake Street sidewalks, the street would create hazardous conditions for both the snowmobilers themselves and the people that are coming and going out of the two exits and entrances. Also, Tannery Bay is a community of vibrant people who enjoy walking to town on those sidewalks, even on snowy days. And if it was going to be groomed as a snowmobile place, it will no longer be shoveled. This year, many people outside of Tannery complained to us residents. I had to myself when I was taking garbage out, asking why Tannery had stopped shoveling the sidewalks on Lake Street, that they were now being forced to walk in the street. We explained it isn't us. We didn't shovel or stop shoveling. So for these reasons, I am just sincerely asking you to consider not having that ordinance of the 2022 for the snowmobilers on Lake Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I ask Chief a question?
Yes.
Do we have anything in our snowmobile ordinance that says anything about you can or cannot drive a snowmobile on a sidewalk? I mean, other than the rail trail.
There's nothing specifically about sidewalks, but it would be presumed that sidewalks are prohibited because they're pedestrians. Bicycles aren't supposed to be on sidewalks.
And I think what part of the problem that she's talking about is, I think a lot of people, that sidewalk pathway that connects to the rail trail that goes all along the front of Tannery Bay, I think a lot of people consider that part of the rail trail. And they don't consider it a sidewalk.
There's a gate up there though that you can shut that you can still walk through. You should probably go back to using that.
Yeah, but all that gate's doing is keeping you from getting onto the rail trail.
Or
I mean, if you're coming from down by the Eagles,
yeah,
on your snowmobile, down what you think is the rail trail, the only place you're not gonna be able to get to is onto the rail trail.
well, maybe,
You're gonna run
they should-
the whole sidewalk all the way in front of Tannery Bay.
Maybe they should make the access to that, Misco Drive there.
All I'm trying to do is help clarify
Yeah,
your point. That,
Exactly.
I think some of the snowmobilers think that that's part of the rail trail, and some people think that it's a sidewalk. And I don't know what the solution is, but
It's a little bit of both.
I agree there shouldn't be.
I think snowmobiles should either be on the road or on access part of the lawn or whatever. They shouldn't be allowed on sidewalks, period.
Right.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Bradford, 1415 Lake Street. I am an avid snowmobiler. I was under the impression that the ordinance in 2022 was put in place so the snowmobiles would stay off the sidewalks in front of Tannery Bay and be on the streets, where they have to obey all the local rules and regulations, meaning sound, speed, and following traffic laws. I believe Chief Squires is correct that I don't think snowmobiles are allowed on sidewalks at all statewide. I could be mistaken, but perhaps a little signage down there could help alleviate the problem. Because I believe Mr. Brown just spoke, that it kind of changes right there in front of Tannery Bay from a paved trail to cement sidewalk. And I for one know that my snowmobile will damage that sidewalk in front of those townhouses there from the skis. They use carbide to turn on the ice, and for some reason it cuts the snot out of cement, but it doesn't really seem to hurt the pavement too much. Just a thought. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Just a straw vote, is anyone in favor of not allowing snowmobiles on Lake Street? I mean, we got a couple minutes here. I don't support the snowmobiles on the sidewalks.
No, they should not be
My
on the
understanding
sidewalk.
was that they were allowed on the street.
I hear what Scott's saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
It appears like, you know how,
yes.
as wide as that is, it appears like it,
Yeah.
and with it also connecting to the rail trail.
Snowmobilers go where they want to go.
People that might be coming through town that don't know town
Right.
might think that's part of the rail trail.
So we allow it on the street, that's the ordinance, right, it's allowed
That's
on
what
the
I
street. Now,
understand,
I
yes.
remember that was so that the people who fish with their snowmobiles can get to some of their fishing locations or ice fishing locations, but I think ideally they're not on any sidewalks. I know I've seen snowmobiles on my sidewalk once in a while. Kind of
You always
scary.
have the few, that's the problem.
Well, I mean, a few is bad enough if I'm like right in front of them.
Yeah, oh, I agree, and again, there's
It
somebody
scared the
that-
heck out of me.
Like that gentleman there, I also snowmobile, I haven't had it on a couple of years because of, the weather, but yeah, sidewalks are taboo, side of the road.
They should be.
Everybody that snowmobiles that knows what they're doing and has
Thank you.
some kind of common sense, will stick to the side of the road.
Well, maybe we need to just remind them.
Signage, a reminder in the.
Reminders in our
Well, yeah,
newsletters,
exactly.
our website,
And-
stay off the
Absolutely.
sidewalks, thank
They
you.
close the gate.
Yeah, and he's not wrong, the
Exactly.
carbides will, they make a mess, studs make mess, but,
But we don't need to change the ordinance because we still want them on the street, right?
yeah,
Isn't it?
like I said, I think the thing is just signage and the best signage we can put out there.
Yeah.
And hope.
Okay.
And quite honestly, if they go back to shoveling the sidewalk, I don't wanna run my sled or my carbides over anything other than snow. I mean, it's just, it wrecks them, absolutely, and you gotta replace them and that's costly, so.
But it wasn't shoveled this year.
Yeah, see, so there's your, yeah.
And I'd like to ask a question too. Can we get the sidewalk there cleaned from plowed by the city
I mean, that's Tannery Bay's responsibility.
Well, I don't know, I'm
No, it's a
asking.
city.
We did it last year.
We called them and told
The
them.
city owns the sidewalk,
Is that a
right?
city sidewalk?
But
Okay.
we don't own over to the Elks, that's for sure. The Eagles, excuse me. I'd like to get that stretch plowed so that we can walk and get out of our subdivision safely.
To the Eagles?
Yeah.
That should be considered sidewalk, yeah.
And I think we weren't because the snowmobilers were using it.
If
But what I'm
if
hearing-
you leave the snow on it, like Scott's leading is, if you leave the snow on it, there's gonna be less damage to the sidewalk. But on the other hand, if you plow it keep the people, the majority of the people that don't wanna wreck their sleds and replace their car rides every year, they'll stay off.
I asked Brian once about getting that, stretch of sidewalk plowed, and he said they didn't want to because they don't otherwise come into that part of the city with the plow, the sidewalk plow. And that probably is one of the heaviest walked sidewalks in town.
I think that's a discussion for another day. We're just about out of time here, so I'm gonna adjourn this meeting. We've got about a minute and a half for our meeting.
We've got, part of our whole, it's the downtown.
Like I said, I didn't think we were
We're gonna push that closer to the.
Yeah, for 20 years. That's been stored for 25 years. It doesn't work bitching on social media. You're elected to run this city, and you're not doing your job.
And it's some board.
But that's not very clear.
I keep trying to talk to people don't understand. Money.
So they're gonna tear it, make a bigger
We set up very.
Or so if you got 100, most tech goes to 100. So it goes
Oh, right.
Last night
So much of that.
61, it's time to call this meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up is the approval of the agenda.
I'm looking for approval of the agenda for April 25th, 2024.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Agenda is approved. Next up is the consent agenda.
I'll move for approval of the April, consent agenda for April 23 as submitted.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Is there any questions, comments?
I have one question, and I've probably asked Scott, who knows how many times, and I always forget. Page, what do we got? No, I ripped it and I can't read it. Anyhow, Loomis Company. Can you explain to me again what that is? WREP plan?
Oh, the RAP. So you can keep asking, hopefully I keep giving you the same answer.
Well, I don't remember, so.
The RAP plan is basically with the Affordability Act, the Obamacare, is that we had to adjust how we do deductibles with our employees. So we have a basic health plan with a high deductible in compliance with federal law. But then we have a RAP plan, which is WRAP, that actually is a supplemental insurance program so that the total financial impact of the employees isn't as hard as without it. So when somebody goes to the doctors, they submit their primary, and I think with priority health now. That's how often we change it. So whatever priority doesn't cover, instead of the employee covering all of that, it goes to the secondary. And then we still have deductibles and copays, but that lessens the impact of, I hate to call it Obamacare, but that's the common term of it.
Okay, thank you, that's all I had.
Yep.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the consent agenda say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no.
No.
Consent agenda is approved. Next up, message from the mayor, council, and city manager. I'll start myself in saying that I'm very happy to see this many people in the room. Many years ago, before I was on council, I attended many council meetings, and I was the only person in the audience. Many years. You remember that, Steve?
Yes, I do.
And if there was a crowd in the audience, it was because people were upset about something. So I hope that most of you are here because you want to learn something and you're not upset about something. And if you're upset about something, then this is the place where we can work it out. So I thank you for your interest. We'll start with next.
Oh, me up this time. The only thing that I want to let everybody know, I got this wonderful little temporary water shut off notice stuck in my door today. just to let everybody know, looks like Warner Street project is gonna shut down at least part of Alice. Did you get one of these? Check your door.
I got something blue on my door.
Alright,
Was
check
it
your
blue?
door. Anyways, the water will be shut off on 4/24, which is tomorrow from 8:30 until approximate, for 6 hours. So, just so everybody knows that's streaming. My guess is if you're on your Alice Street or some of them other ones, you might wanna fill your tub up or something else if you need to, because you're not gonna have
Fill
water
some gallon jugs up.
from 6 hours, yeah. So, figured I'd let everybody know about that, myself included, but the way I'm working.
Thank you for that. Scott?
Heading this way?
Yes, sir.
I just have a question for Scott that doesn't really have a whole lot to do with much, but, have we had any issues since we repainted the art wall?
We haven't.
I haven't seen any.
Nothing's been re-tagged in any way or anything?
No.
Cool, thank you, that's all I wanted to know. I haven't been out walking for the last week and a half, so I haven't been down here to see myself.
There is a small spot where it appears the paint isn't sticking real well, where I can see some color.
There's many coats of paint and some of that stuff got on it, I'm surprised paint sticks to it at all.
And as cool as the weather was when it was painted, so,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Steve?
I have nothing tonight.
I have a couple of things. One is that I really did appreciate, like, was it you that commented on the article that was in with the water bill? And Tanya and I had both talked about using the water bill as a way to get information out to people. I think that was a great way to start, and it had something to do with somebody being here today. I don't know. I worked on the trash bash the other day, and that was interesting to see a lot of neighborhood people out and about and picking up garbage and stuff they wouldn't normally want to touch. But I did have one complaint by one of the fishermen along the shoreline. I did the shoreline up to the bridge, from the Calusa Bridge, and then from the rail bridge over to the other one, and complained about when they cut down all the trash along the shoreline, they left it in there and it makes it hard to fish.
Trees. Cut down the shrubs, you said trash. You
Oh,
said they cut
okay,
down
yeah,
trash.
sorry.
Okay.
The shrubs, they cut down the shrubs and left it in the water and so on. And then I did have a question on the Warner Street project. Is that a total rebuild, or is that a regrind, a mill and repave?
Depends on what portions. A majority of it is gonna be a complete rebuild. The north end, the north 3 blocks, I think that's gonna be basically just a resurfacing.
Okay. I had a question about that from somebody. Good, thank you.
I heard on the trash bash that they were pretty much not a lot of trash they found to be picked up, so that's a good thing.
I was a little
This is
surprised.
Good thing. I was out of town, so I couldn't add my flavor to it, but I heard it was a good turnout, but there wasn't much to pick up, which is good.
Yeah, I think it's, I can't remember how many years it's been going, but it's, there were more people this year that came out and less trash, so it's good.
It's good.
Yeah, we're making good progress.
Anything
Well
else?
organized.
Anything else?
Me?
Yes,
Okay.
I think you're done.
I'm done, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanna say again, to Tom's point with the newsletter, edition of the explanation of the boards. It's a great piece of education, and I would like to see how can we, the newsletter's great, it's once a quarter, that's great. I don't think we're gonna do that every quarter, but, is there a way we could do some things on Facebook, maybe post a couple of, Mavis boards that, just some of our posts could be about a board, so it's there for reference for people to go back to, and just a reminder. I think the more word we get out that these boards are, number one, that they exist, that they are meeting, when they're meeting, all of that information out there, the more the better. So.
And if I can chime in, since that's brought up more than once, all the credit goes to Brenda. She's got the English major. My reports are probably boring. Brenda has a nice way of putting the information together with a little bit of flair.
Thank you, Scott.
Could I make a little comment on that?
Sure.
I think it's good.
What about people that don't get a water bill? I mean, can't you just send us one that says, you owe $0 for water and sewer and give us all the information? Cause I don't get one. I have my own water and sewer.
We can add you to the billing. I mean, not to the, to the.
Yeah, we can charge
This newsletter costs $1.
No, it'd be a lot more than that, but we can put you on the mailing
Yes,
list.
we'll get a mailing
Not-
list.
not in the
of
building,
non-water
but-
people.
I mean, I'd like to see what everybody else is seeing.
Well, probably everybody that doesn't have city sewer or water should be added to the
Yeah.
mailing list. And
There's only 20 of us.
But you get your
Newsletter
information
is-
every day, so.
In City Hall, right there, when you walk in, is it not? It's always there.
But we can
So I
add
could
the,
drive down and get it, but you
Yeah.
guys can come in the mailbox.
We'll get it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this is a little personal, but I had the opportunity of using our emergency services last week and called 911 for the first time in my life. I was very, very ill due to a complication from a surgery, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Because it's been a little frustrating. But White Lake Fire came first, and I don't know one name. Somebody was named Nick, and they were really just excellent. And waited there until the ambulance came, and the ambulance folks were great and got me to the hospital. And also, Mercy Hospital was great too, the emergency room and the regular rooms, which is good to report because I tend to hear a lot of negative, and so I was a little bit nervous about it. But I was very impressed with our local services. So if you pass that along.
I will do that.
But I'm not planning to use them again.
well, you weren't planning on using them that time either.
Don't forget, Tammy.
It's good to know
you
that-
always have the option of Trinity Lakeshore too, and the same ER docs that work at Mercy ER work up there, so.
Well, actually, another time, now that you asked, I did go up there. And they debated about where I would
We
go.
have
And
a
they,
6-bed employee work up there.
yeah, but they were excellent.
Yes.
They're like, oh, Mercy said they might be able to fix you up, might. And I'm like, take me wherever. So that was logic. So that's all I'm going to say about this.
So that's a nice segue to an opportunity I'd like you to talk about the upcoming millage for the White Lake Fire Authority.
Oh, yes. We do have a vote coming up for the fire authority it's a millage renewal to a point. The station millage that everybody graciously voted in 5 years ago, is done. The station will be paid for, thank the Lord. So now we are going for just a millage for operating, which we're requesting 2.25. The old one was 20, 30 years, Scott, wasn't it, when the fire authority was formed? Been 20, a good 20. And as everybody knows, the cost of doing business is going up. So even at 225, I think we're doing really, really good. So
make sure this is all just information.
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 No advocacy.
it's information. So it's 225 is what we're requesting. If anybody has any further questions out there in here, feel free to get hold of the chief, Peter McCarthy. He has 2 town halls coming up. I don't remember the dates. But if you look at the White Lake Fire Authority website or the Facebook page, it is listed. 2 town halls, one out at Station 1 and one out at Station 2 to let everybody know if they got questions, and it's a Q&A. So, and you get to see the new station if you go to one and see what the upgrades we've made to Station 2. So that'd be a good thing. As Tanya will tell you over there, see what we got, see what our guys are like, kick the tires essentially. So
What's the date of the millage again?
May
7th.
7th.
That's the.
Go to the town halls, don't call 911.
I've been asked if that was if this is an increase.
It is an increase over the original 30-year note, yes.
So is there one expiring and one new one coming on? Is
Yes,
that
yes,
that's the case?
yes, everything is done. The station millage is done, the operating millage is done. This is to renew the operating millage for the fire authority.
But it is a net decrease.
But it is a net decrease, yes, over what you were paying.
So That's the important information I wanna get out to people, that they understand what,
Yes, it
What
is
the
a net,
facts
it
are.
is a net decrease.
whether you support them or not, that's your personal
Yep.
vote.
Yep.
So, all right, with that, I think we'll move on to public comment. Once again, if you wanna make a comment on anything on the agenda, step forward, give your name and address in 3 minutes, please.
Just a quick one, Mark Meanhouse, 1421. Jeff,
It works.
is it like mandatory, like when you guys make a run at 2 in the morning to Lewis Street to the manor,
Yes,
you run the sirens?
yes,
You go right past my house, wake me up,
absolutely.
wake my grandkids
I
up.
gotta-
Can't you just have the lights on?
No, it won't work. No, ask, Roger
State
will
law.
be, no, it's a.
State law.
State law.
Break the law.
They wake up every time.
I'm sorry about that, but
The problem is if we are not, and we get hit, or we hit somebody, you can imagine the liability with it, so.
if there's no further public comment, we'll move on to old business. I don't believe we have old business. We have old people, no old business. New business, tag day requests.
I'll make a motion to approve these 2 tag day requests.
Second.
And moved and seconded, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. All right, tag days are approved. Next is resolution 2414, city goals.
I will move resolution 2414 with city goals.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, is there any discussion?
I thought we were gonna have another, discussion. I thought that we had agreed we would have one more discussion about it. I'm not really crazy about voting on this, cause I still feel like it mixes up, streets and, for example, it's got the Christmas decorations, which is a downtown thing, but then it's got another downtown thing, which is the beautification, and it would be much more meaningful to me to deal with these in like categories. Here's the things that people wanna do in the downtown, what are some of the things we can agree on that we wanna see if we have funding for? Here's some things people wanna do in the parks, what are our priorities for the parks? But it just feels like a mishmash, and so I don't feel like I can vote on it at this time. I'd like to combine them, and look at, just have a more in-depth, conversation about what we wanna be focusing on in the next 2 years. We do have priorities already, we know that. If they're ongoing, let's leave them off the list, let's focus on some new things that people wanna do, but, I also just kind of frustrated, because like I said before, there are goals, and then there are things on the list that are not goals, so, I'd like, at least going forward, I'd like a process that, involves more people in the community, rather than one meeting with, I don't know how many meetings, 30 or 40 people in a community of a little under 3,000. I'd like to go back to people once we've said, hey, this looks like what council thinks are good priorities. What do you think? That's just one more easy way of being transparent. So at the very least, I'd like a little bit of a reworking of these into some useful categories that we can prioritize in that fashion. I think we have time for a meeting before the budget meeting, don't we, Scott?
You do. And the reason they're ranked this way is just high priority to low priority. So staff, when we look at putting together the budget and having discussions with council about the budget, we can kind of start clicking top to bottom, but that doesn't exclude, there's a lot of them that didn't get any votes that are already included in some of the grant applications.
Well, I know, but that's what makes the process kind of useless to me. If we're already doing some of these things, then why are they even on the list?
But I think they need to be in the list to remind staff and council that we're working on those. If we take streets off, you just taken $1 million a year out of that budget cycle, assuming it's gonna be there. And in a sense it would be, but I think it's also a footnote to council and to staff that we are working with limited financial resources.
Well, I just don't know why streets are there when we're already gonna work on them. So why is it in the list of priorities when it's obvious we're gonna work on streets? Is it there because we're gonna put more money into it, or what's going on with that?
It could be, but again, I think council has to reiterate that that is still a goal. Years back, one of the goals that was repeated a few years was sidewalks. Then council decided not to vote for those. Then we came back pretty strong the last couple of years with sidewalks. I guess it's a foothold to remind all of us that we are continuing to work on streets, and that means there's less money for the other. I'll leave it up to Jeff to count them. That there's less money for all of the other goals.
All the other stuff.
And I think you added up the numbers before what the total cost is. We cannot come close to completing all of these goals over the next 2 years. Not financially, probably not physically. There's only so much you can physically do in a year.
Well, that would be helpful for us to have a discussion about. For example, what are we looking at? What can we put on to continued improvements? What could we put toward a new project? I just feel like everybody had these lovely ideas they just kind of threw up on the map, and we were like, yeah, this, yeah, that. It's not the way to set goals for the next 2 years. The organizations that I've been involved with, we don't do it that way, and I don't think our city should. At the very least, I'd like to have one meeting where we have a chance to discuss more, one more time, And for example, like I said, the Christmas decorations came out top, obviously. That makes a lot of sense. But then we've got downtown beautification. Why are we not looking at that all together and saying, what can we do to improve the downtown? One thing is Christmas decorations. Another is, a beautification plan, which is relatively inexpensive, So why are we not looking at, what do we want to do for the downtown? What do we want to do for parks?
These were all individual goals from individual people.
I know.
So if you lump them all together, they're not individual goals anymore.
Well, do we want to support individual goals? Or
That's what the purpose of the goals is for.
So my goal is more important. We need to look at the goals together. And
the goals were all put up individually, and we all got to vote on them.
What I'm saying,
why do we need to vote on them again?
Well, what I'm saying is this, for example, some of these are not even goals. A goal is something that you can measure. We want to have this by this, and this is how we're going to get there. These are things that we might want to do, but they're not necessarily goals. I guess I'm kind of frustrated with this process. I was frustrated when I was on council before, so I'm saying the same thing.
I share you on being frustrated being on council.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, if we have some things that we're already doing, let's put them on the already doing list. I guess I'm expressing a preference for grouping like things together, which is what you typically do when you look at goals. You group like things together and you're like, what do we want to pick out of the downtown? Maybe if we're doing Christmas decorations, we want to think about beautification because that's kind of the same thing. So, if folks are ready to vote, they're ready to vote, and I'm in the minority. I just don't feel ready to vote on this.
And we did, for your voting purposes, we did group things similar together. All of the parks goals, I'm going to use that term, were all grouped, and specifically by Funnel Field, Slocum Park. They were all grouped together, and then the council, through your process, decided this part in this grouping was more important than the other parts. Because we just simply can't do all of them. You can't vote to make park improvements your number one priority, because that's just not financially doable. So they were grouped together for your review and voting purposes. But now they're grouped again by top to bottom priority. Because that's what staff will look at when we're putting together our department budgets. We look at this and we present that to council, and we have that discussion at council saying, hey, we went ahead and budgeted an extra $80,000 for sidewalks, and we know another $30,000 for Christmas lights. So this is a guide, and it's the actual budget adoption that will firm the goals up as to what you're gonna do for that year.
Well,
So that's the thinking behind it from my perspective.
I just still think you could have done more intentional. I mean, it just seems like throwing up a bunch of stuff, throwing up a bunch of dots, and then here we go.
Well, but throwing a bunch of stuff was part of encouraging everybody in the community who attended to whatever thoughts they wanted. Then it's up to council to decide, you know, sorry, that wasn't one of our priorities. Not that it's a bad goal.
Well, most of us were council members or staff.
Our class, not our group, Steve and I were in a group that, we had a group of 4 or 5 guys over here, and they gave, Brenda and Roger were there, and then those guys were quite vocal on different things and ideas, and
So how many non-council, non-staff members did we have?
I don't know the numbers, I know there was quite a few people in that room.
It probably doesn't make any difference because it was advertised that the public could attend it and whatever public wanted to come came. I mean, it's no different than a
So I guess
council.
if you had to work that night, you couldn't make it. Okay, if people feel like they're ready to vote, I'm happy to, to say no, but I'm gonna give you another way of looking at it going forward. For example, I'd like to look at what can we give what gives the most benefit with the least cost, you know what I mean? Like what's gonna make the most benefit for people that's like some of the smaller costs, I just would like to have a more in-depth discussion, but.
Should we put that on the work session?
Yeah, I just, feel like it's a mishmash, and it's hard to vote on a mishmash.
And we've picked off stuff at the bottom of picked off low hanging fruit like you were just talking about. Something's $300, $400, $500. They've picked 1s and 2s off the bottom and because they had a little extra funds here and there. And I'm assuming they're gonna do the same thing this time, if we decide one of them was a grill, that one I brought up, a big grill over there, it's $1,200. I mean, if we come up with that and we got a little extra land here, there, or everywhere, we sell some property again, I mean, like you said, get the most bang for your buck.
I have a question that, it might be something that I just missed before, but, I got a question on, did we have all these costs, the estimates before?
You did.
Because I don't remember seeing the $272,000 for a pavilion at Koval and also the $720,000 for the skate park at Slocum. And I don't even know, is that ice skating or roller skating?
Roller skating.
Okay.
Yep.
Skateboarding.
Skateboarding. I'm sorry.
Skateboarding.
Yes.
Okay, that I do remember.
Keeping in mind, these are goals, but once we get down to talking about the budget, what we budget, that's what's gonna happen. And because it's a goal, doesn't mean that we're going to put the dollars towards it.
Well, I guess it would have been helpful to know that beforehand, like how much money do we have for new projects, or how much money do we have what's our budget looking like, so that would have been helpful.
I don't believe our revenues have changed much.
Not significantly.
So,
But, again, that's part of the budget process. Staff is, I'm finalizing what department heads have submitted and what have been approved by a couple of the boards. And we'll go to council, and that's always often quite a discussion because we can't afford everything that's in there. So when you get your budget, you're gonna know how much money we have. And again, staff's gonna try and budget as much as we can, top to bottom from goals. And also indicate some of the other ones that are the zeros, the 1s and the 2s. So at that point, when you actually do this, it would be really hard to say council's got $100,000 to spend.
is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I take it that we wanna move towards a vote. So, roll call please.
Holmstrom,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes,
Sittinga,
Yes.
Kabala,
No.
Hillebrand,
Yes.
Zemer,
Yes.
Salter.
Yes. Resolution 2414 is approved. Alright. Next up. Public comment. Public comment. It's the last opportunity for anyone in the room to have a say about anything. If not, alright, well, thank you all for coming. We're adjourned. Hope to see you in 2 weeks.
See you next time.
Yeah, I was there.
Y'all come back now.